Hey guys, Justin here. Today, I'm here to talk about Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai. Why would you give a game like this 3 different names? Anyway, not off to a good start. I think the marketing for this game didn't do it any favors. Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai. It's just too much. Plus, it looked like this huge action RPG that turned out to be more of a visual novel. Anyway, a lot going against it, but I think if you play this game, you actually see there's something of value here. Let's take a look. I pre-ordered my physical copy from PlayAsia as soon as I could, as soon as they became available, and whenever the game released, I started seeing some of the review scores. Man, I started wondering, did I just waste my money on this game? I love Dragon Quest, but some of the review scores started coming in like the 40s and the 50s. Oh man, I started feeling like this pit in my stomach. But it's not nearly as bad as the reviews are making it out to be, and I just wanted to make this video. If you really love Dragon Quest and you're curious about this game, I wanted to sort of give you an idea of what you can expect. So here we go. Here's my review of Infinity Strash, Dragon Quest, The Adventure of Dai. Now, I've been a huge Dragon Quest fan for pretty much my entire life. This is like the only complete in-box NES game that I own, the original Dragon Warrior. And we've had so many great Dragon Quest games on the Switch, so starting with Dragon Quest XI, S, Dragon Quest Treasures from a little earlier this year, maybe it was late last year, whenever it was, and then Dragon Quest Builders 2. So I expected nothing less whenever Infinity Strash was announced. This was a game that was going a little different direction. It wasn't a turn-based deal like Dragon Quest XI. It was going to be an action-based RPG in the Dragon Quest universe, but about this different character, Dai. It's a pretty popular manga too. I really liked this one a lot, and so I was really excited about it. Is it just, comparing it to something like Dragon Quest XI, is that what's causing the reviews to be so low? And listen, some of the reviews had some good points, but I don't think it's nearly as bad as they make it out to be. If you look at the Metacritic score for the Switch version, Nintendo Life and Nintendo World Report both gave it a 40 out of 100. Ouch. In fact, Nintendo World Report went as far as to call it, and let me get this right, a lifeless husk of a video game. Looking at the PlayStation 5 version, another reviewer called it a, quote, overpriced mobile game. I think a lot of the issue with this game came from how it was marketed. It looked like it was going to be a true action RPG. And there are elements of that, but I think a better way, maybe not better, a more truthful way to market this game is a visual novel with some action RPG elements. If you like visual novels, you're used to a ton of dialogue, not a whole lot of action, and that's what you get with this game. That's really what you get with a lot of this game. It takes you through Dai's entire story, and it does so pretty fast, but it's still a lot of reading. Thankfully, it's all voice acted, so you don't have to read the entire thing. The voice actors are the same voice actors, I think, from the anime, so if you're familiar with that, the voice actors will sound familiar. But when I first started playing this game, maybe the first hour or so, I was watching way more than I was playing. I mean, a lot more than I was playing. I was sitting there, actually, I was sitting there on the couch. I was playing in docked mode on my Switch, and I had my Pro Controller in my hand, and the screen actually went to sleep while I was watching some of these cutscenes. Like, they just take forever. Not a great first impression, but the game is setting up so much of the story that it takes a little while to get going. I don't think the game really hits its stride until about Chapter 3, and that could be 10 hours into your playthrough. I mean, really, it takes a long time to get going. But I think once it does, if you accept that it's a visual novel and an action RPG sort of combined together, I think you can appreciate it a little more. You can see what they were going for. Now, some of the animations in the cutscenes aren't great. We're looking at a lot of stills with voice acting over them. Some cutscenes are animated, but not all. It's just kind of hit and miss, unfortunately. So I'm not saying this is a great game. Square Enix definitely did some of this on the cheap. But if you go in and you expect a good mix of cutscene story stuff with some action RPG stuff, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Apart from the cutscenes, one of the things that disappointed me the most about this game is there's no exploration. Most of the fighting you do are boss battles. There are a few little levels where you run around, a very small level, and it's like just corridor after corridor fighting small enemies like slimes. But there's not much exploration at all. I was expecting something, not necessarily open world, but sort of like an open zone where I could go around and look for a treasure, and that's not what you get here. That's not what this game is. Between boss battles, in these tiny little levels, like I said, they're built like corridors. You go around a corner into sort of an open area, and you fight a bunch of monsters. Once you clear out all the monsters in that area, then you move on to the next area. Do the same thing. And you do that until you beat all the monsters in the area. Kind of rinse and repeat. This is a pretty basic hack and slash. The boss battles are pretty tough. I had to replay a few of them multiple times. I mean, maybe you're better at action RPGs than I am. I had upgraded my bond memories. I had to upgrade some of my magic attacks. It takes a little while. It's fun, but it takes a little while. It's challenging. So let's talk about the combat a little bit. When you're not watching cutscenes, you are almost always in combat. The combat feels really kinetic, but there is a weight behind these attacks. I don't know if it's just because I was playing it on the Switch or if it's true of the other versions as well, but the combat felt a little sluggish to me. It took a little while for me to get used to. The last action RPG I played was Final Fantasy 16, and obviously that combat, whatever you think about the game, the combat I thought was really solid and just felt really kinetic again, but it clicked really fast. You were moving in and out. You could evade attacks pretty easily with your dodge. This one, you have to be a little more deliberate. Your timing has to be perfect to get out of the way of attacks. After you evade an attack, there's like a split second where you can't move. You are stuck. You're like recovering from the evade, and it leaves you wide open. I got killed a lot of times just from this. You know, a boss attacking multiple times. I evade the first attack, maybe I evade the second attack, and then the third one hits me and one-shots me. Now, another interesting oversight, I think, for this game is the targeting system, being able to lock on to enemies. You can lock on to bosses, no problem. You can't lock on to smaller enemies. No, some of these enemies only take like 1 or 2 hits and they're dead, but you can't lock on, so you're constantly moving the camera trying to see where the next one is. You know, if you've got maybe 15 slimes around you, you're constantly moving the camera around trying to find where the slime went that you just hit, or where's the next slime. It's sort of a weird oversight because like every other action RPG lets you, target an enemy. It doesn't matter if they're a small enemy or a boss, and then once you kill him, then you just automatically move to the next enemy. You can't do this here. So I didn't like it at first, and some of the reviewers have mentioned that this was not one of their favorite parts of the game, but I grew to like it, was the Temple of Recollection. The Temple of Recollection, I'm not sure if it's actually a true endless dungeon or if there are just a ton of different rooms, but basically outside of the main story, you can enter this Temple of Recollection and fight room after room of enemies. Now, the cool thing about the Temple of Recollection is that as you clear a room, you have an option. There are 2 doors after you clear a room, and you choose the door you want to go through based on what stats you want to level up. So clearing out some rooms give you higher attack, some give you higher magic, some are defense, and there's some treasures in other ones. So you get to sort of build your character the way you want to working through these rooms. After you get through a set of rooms, you can decide if you want to take your loot and go to the entrance and exit out, right? Or you can continue on through the dungeon and take on another set of rooms. But if you don't finish every room in the set, you lose everything that you've acquired so far. It's high risk, high reward. The more rooms you go through, the more difficult they get. But the stronger you are because you're leveling up your attack or your magic or your defense as you go. I think it's a really interesting system, especially for a game like this where it's not easy to grind in this game with the normal levels. You're fighting bosses or you're fighting these hordes of smaller enemies, but those battles are sort of few and far between. So the Temple of Recollection really gives you the opportunity to go in and just hack and slash as much as you want. As you move through the Temple of Recollection, you start to collect different items and these other things called bond memories. You can also get bond memories from the story itself, but the Temple of Recollection really lets you acquire them pretty quickly. So what these are Dai's memories through his story. And these bond memories can be attached to your character and give you additional abilities. So like some may give you more health and more attack power. Others can improve your magic. It just depends on which one you equip. You're not just playing with Dai. You've got some other characters in your party, and you can equip these bond memories to them as well. It's important to get as many of these bond memories as you possibly can and upgrade them throughout the game. The more you upgrade, the stronger they get, and that's how you upgrade your character. Outside of building up levels, you can upgrade your character through these bond memories. If you like Dragon Quest, there's a lot to like here. The enemies are familiar, you know, the characters themselves have that Toriyama aesthetic, obviously. And for me, it was really cool to see enemies like the metal slime. They're really hard to kill. You don't see them that often, but when you do, if you are able to destroy them before they get away, you get a ton of experience points. Those little callbacks back to mainline Dragon Quest games really just kept pushing me through this one. Now, I'm not saying this is a perfect game. I'm not even saying it's a great game, but I think it deserves better than what some of the reviewers have said about it. It's definitely more than an overpriced mobile game. If you're not into visual novels, you're gonna hate this game. Even with the action combat stuff, you are really gonna hate this game. But if you go in knowing that half of the gameplay is just gonna be visual novel, I think there's a lot to enjoy here. For me, this game is like a solid 7 out of 10. I think I was expecting so little based on the reviews. My expectations were just so low that by the time the game actually got going in like the second or third chapter, I was really happy with how it all came together. And I think it's definitely worth a pickup. If you like Dragon Quest, if you like visual novels and sort of action adventure RPGs, I think it's worth picking up. Now, there are so many games out right now, but don't let this one pass you by. Personally, I'm really happy to have this and to have it physically. I still believe in physical media, especially for the Switch. It's really cool to see, you know, my small collection of Dragon Quest here for the Switch on the shelf beside my original copy of Dragon Warrior. So for me, it was worth it to pick up the physical version from PlayAsia. But honestly, if you don't care that much about physical versions and you see this on the eShop for, I don't know, 15, 20 bucks, I think it's a must buy. So what do you guys think? Have you been playing any of the Adventure of Dai? Do you think it's worth it? Did you play any of the other Dragon Quest games? Are you interested in this game at all? If so, let me know in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching and thanks for subscribing.